All right, minutes away from a White House briefing. The first chance we've seen from the White House of any sort besides the president's brief tweet this morning to react to former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort facing a 12-count indictment. He will face the judge on all of that in about 40 minutes or so. The former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Tom Dupree. Tom, steer me through this process. He goes before the judge. What goes on?
Well, I suspect that he will initially enter a not guilty plea. That's typically how these things happen. Nonetheless, he does have to go into the federal courthouse. He'll have to run through the gauntlet of media cameras and people yelling questions at him in all likelihood. And ultimately, he'll go before the judge. It really is a procedural hearing today. They're not going to get into the substance. They're not going to get into legal arguments. It's really just to have the defendant appear in court, enter that initial plea. And at that point, things will pick up as they would in any normal criminal prosecution, where there will be months and months of parrying back and forth, getting ready for what ultimately might be a trial or, of course, could be a plea deal.
The fact that there were so many counts to this, and I'm just going on, you know, conspiracy against the U.S., conspiracy to launder money, unregistered agent, a foreign principal, false misleading statements, 7 counts of failure to file reports to foreign banks and financial accounts. It's almost exclusively financial related. But the president seemingly in his tweet today saying prior to his hooking up with the campaign. So is there any hint of anything that he might try to enter into agreement with a judge or whomever about involving any other Trump associates?
Well, there's certainly nothing in today's indictment that suggests that there was a link between the Trump campaign and Russia. In other words, you're absolutely right that what this indictment focuses on is business dealings that Manafort and his partner had long before he entered the world of Donald Trump. Now, that said, I think that it does become very relevant to what Mueller is doing, because what this indictment does is it gives Mueller leverage. It gives Mueller the leverage he needs to try to negotiate a deal with Manafort or with his partner Gates, who also was charged, and try to figure out whether they have information that will be useful to Mueller, that could make this link that may or may not exist between the campaign and Russia. And if he can get the witnesses to admit to that and to cooperate, then he's going to be willing to offer a reduced sentence.
All right, but what gives you the reduced sentence? I mean, couldn't you lie about that and go ahead and say, yeah, the president knew this or knew that, or would have to be borne out and proven in a later, court hearing?
Well, you certainly can't lie. In other words, if you agree to cooperate with the government in exchange for a reduced sentence, you're still under an obligation, a legal command to tell the truth. So Mueller cannot say, in exchange for cooperation, I want you to lie about this or spin a false story.
No,
at the same
I'm
time,
not saying that. That did seem a little jaded on my part. But what's to stop him from, especially when I'm looking at 12 counts that could land me in prison for the rest of my life, what's to stop him from making such insinuations?
Well, he'll still be constrained by his requirement to tell the truth to federal agents and to testify under oath if it should come to that. In other words, there is certainly going to be a lot of pressure now on both Manafort and Gates to cooperate. But at the same time, all of that pressure is limited in that it can't be pressure to spin a false story or to lie, and that he is going to be subject to the obligation to tell the truth, no matter whether it inculpates or exculpates people on the campaign.
Robert Ray, the former Whitewater independent counsel, was here, Tom, and he was saying the one thing he did take note of was the speed with which Mueller is operating now. What do you think?
Well, look, I think from one perspective, this has been a very slow-moving investigation. It's been going on for months now. We now have an indictment. The Manafort indictment doesn't really get to the heart of what Mueller was appointed to do. So from that perspective, you wish that this thing was moving faster and that it will be wrapped up soon. At the same time, we also know that these investigations do take a while. It's a lot of complex records you have to sift through. You have to talk through a lot of witnesses. And it may well be that Mueller's strategy here is to flip one witness onto another, which will further elongate the proceedings. So I suspect that although today's indictment is a significant milestone in this investigation, we are far from the end of it, and there's a lot more to come.
Republicans have been saying for quite a while, in fact, they continue to push for the fact that Mueller should step down because of conflicts of interest, or that he didn't aggressively probe the Hillary Clinton allegations and ties to Russia and this Uranium One deal and all. If it is shown that Mueller, even back in his FBI days, was not interested in pursuing that, do they have a case?
Well, based on what I've seen so far, Neil, I don't think it's a particularly strong case to say that his past behavior should force him to recuse here. I think that the spotlight now should be put on how Mueller proceeds with this investigation. And if there is going to be a substantial basis to demand his recusal, I think it needs to be focused on how he's handling this investigation, whether he is, in fact, staying within the lines that the special counsel, the authorizing order allows him to do, or whether he's kind of going out of his lane and expanding his investigation to areas that he shouldn't, or neglecting areas that he should be investigating, frankly.
Yeah, it always seems to veer from the original intent. But Tom Dupree, thank you very, very much. Good seeing you.
Thank you, Neil. Likewise.